or something, so we keep going through the end of the year to try to eliminate the stuff that we don't want back.
How was Thanksgiving sales?
Good. Too bad we can't sell on Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
That would be a good day to be selling.
Are there going to be any? I don't know.
Weren't other liquor stores open on Thanksgiving?
You can legally not be open on Thanksgiving. You can be open on Easter, but not on Thanksgiving.
2 days a year you can't be
Yeah,
open.
why not Easter?
You know what? I'm sure it's
You
because
can be open on Easter. You
I know,
can't.
why
You
should-
can't be
you
open on
shouldn't be
Thanksgiving
open on
and
Easter.
Christmas.
I think it's because when they decided that, they weren't typically open on Sunday, so they didn't include it in there. But last year I went to the store after I was done at the caboose just to catch up on some paperwork. I had 25 missed phone calls and people knocking on the door, so I finally went home and said, I want to be, I didn't want to have my car there thinking they could come in and buy, and so I finally just went home. But yeah, it'd be a nice day to be selling if we could. On sale can, off sale cannot. You have to be closed by 8 on Christmas Eve and not on Christmas.
Okay.
Did not know that. You just taught me something.
Any wine tasting events or
We
coming
had
up?
one not last Thursday, the Thursday before. Unfortunately, the roads were icky, so they're going to come back again when we decide if we want to have them do it again. But it was when I had the bad weather that day.
Yeah. Okay.
Anything else for Tamara? Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, we got Shane. I forgot about him. Hey.
Hopefully TV land works now, but it seems to be up on the screen, so
It seems a little delayed though, because
It is delayed.
you're not
It's
exactly.
always delayed.
Really? I didn't know.
a little bit between the two usually.
So the mayor can swear every once in a while. So,
Who's got the
Maybe we
dump
should take
button though?
that out. Yeah, right. Don't you have one of those bleep things you can just put right in there?
Yeah. Hopefully everybody got a chance to read the report. TV wasn't on, but hear me out in the public too. We got snow coming tonight and tomorrow. Don't really know exactly how much, but just remember winter parking rules, and if we're out, we'll probably be citing people if they're parked in the road. We'll know more when Mother Nature throws it at us tomorrow as far as when and where and how much, but kind of where that's at anyway. So that being said, much wrapped up for street sweeping and everything for the year, and decorations are up. Main highlights, it's working on some equipment, prepping for winter. So, haven't had any questions.
Are they still playing out at the ponds?
They are still out there. Yep. Substantial completion is coming soon. I think it's first week of December. So they got pretty much the north side wrapped up for the most part. I think last week they were looking pretty good there. So there's the south side they're fixed up, mainly just moving dirt around, leveling things off. So
Good.
but all the land application's done. Outside of the pond site, there's a little bit they're going to put on the site as they fill. But that's the only thing that's left out there. So
On the south side of the road, that ditch is quite steep now. And maybe it always was. It was just full of
yeah,
stuff, brush and everything.
yep.
Will there be any type of a
Eat grass.
guard or something? I mean, that's deep.
Yeah.
Steep.
Don't drive down in there.
Don't go in the ditch.
No, but that's a good point, though. I mean, it is really steep out
Yep.
there. And maybe it would be worth. I agree with Jerry that some safety guardrails could prevent a
I
serious.
don't know whose
rollover.
place that is. If
It's
it's
the county's
county.
road, so it'd be up on them as far as that goes. But the the ditch is actually where it was initially. It's all cleaned out now, so there's
Yeah.
really nothing to stop you.
But we can see the hazard now, and I
Yeah.
just think it might be worth a call to the county highway department, and, it'd be something that'd be easy to overlook if,
Yeah, that might be something they want to address, but I can reach out to them.
Wouldn't hurt to reach out, not that they'll
Yeah,
jump right
see
on
what
it,
they,
but-
at least bring the issue up to them. So yeah, it's looking good out there. It's looking a lot different as far as what I've been looking at my whole life. So
otherwise, do you feel good about the equipment that your department has for snow removal and so forth, and your crew and?
yeah, it's just getting things moved around from summer mode to winter mode right now. Mainly, we're just waiting for some parts for the blower to go into the new loader. There's a little bit of complication there, but we have a temporary fix for it if we need to use it tomorrow, but we'll just have to run the cord through the window. But just a bunch of hoops we had to jump through, and then getting some odd parts. It's kind of a special connector, so we had to wait for some parts to come in for it. So, but nothing too earth-shattering. We're getting closer, just not quite there yet. But in a pinch, we can still use it. Just won't be that comfortable.
Good.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Thanks, Shane.
You bet.
Your turn to yours.
Jeff is sick today. He was here earlier and then said he wasn't feeling well and went home. He was actually supposed to, well, anyway, he's just not doing well. And of course, we don't have a finance director. Tyler Twistle is starting on Wednesday. So we're 2 days away from having a department head for that. I apologize for not having, department head reports for that particular department. It's just something we kind of didn't do under the circumstances, but we'll work on getting him up to speed. Our new employee, Stacy, finance clerk, has been here almost a month. I think we're week 4. I think we're probably about ready at this point to start expanding some of the hours back at the in the office as well. Maybe not fully. The challenge that we have is that she can't do everything because the driver's license portion of it requires a background check, and the state has to authorize her to actually do driver's licenses. She can do tabs and other things like that, but she still doesn't have the ability to do it just because of that hoop. But I think we could probably. I think she's comfortable based on what she told me. Doing a lot of other things. So I think we're probably okay to start expanding the hours a little bit. That's kind of where we are with that particular department. So we'll be pretty excited to have ourselves kind of full strength at that point.
So when you say expanding, are you thinking going back, starting earlier, or?
That's a good question. I was thinking about that. I mean, do you? I think expand, but maybe not, back to 8 to 4. But, what are your thoughts in terms of? My initial thought was probably at the end of the day, because it seems like the more people kind of show up right at the end. But to kind of go back to 4, as an ending time, and then maybe in another month we go back to our regular hours. I don't know if that makes sense or not to you all, but that's kind of what was in my head.
I tend to agree.
Yeah.
I guess whatever the girls see as the busier time to be most beneficial.
That's my observation, but I'll ask them what they think makes the most sense, whether it be earlier or later. Or, the other option is just to not close for lunch like we have been between 11 and 12. So, but we'll figure that out. Really, my focus is to get you a completed budget at the beginning of next week so you have more time to review it. It won't be substantially different than what you saw in the preliminary budget. Some of the things that we had talked about is, what are the tax levy? As I indicated, even though we certified 10% early, we're not gonna do that. I'm gonna recommend, we go back to the 7 that we'd originally talked about. Based on what I see, I think that we'll be okay. The plan is to take to the ambulance contract at the amount that they requested, but that's coming out of the hospital fund. It will include the full services at the Eagles Club for the seniors that they're getting now. It will include all of the COLAs for the union contract, and some for the salaried employees as well for next year. Ultimately, I think that it'll be tight because, as you know, 23 and 24 and 25 are going to be our most difficult years. But I sure wish that the state would do something about local government aid. I mean, they gave us a whopping additional $7,000 this year. It's just kind of poor. Hopefully, maybe with some motivation at the state level to do something about that, that'll help next year. But we're not going to get a lot of help this year for that. So it is going to be really tight, but we should be able to do the things that we need to do for next year, and you'll get that next week. The budget will include some additional things this year compared to last year. We've been kind of trying to model ourselves after some other cities to maybe even apply for a Government Finance Officers Association award for this budget, which would make us the youngest city in this state, the smallest city in the state, I think, to receive that award if we can get that. Krista Listel was working on that before we left, and a lot of it's there. I need to put the finishing touches on it, but I wanted to make sure that the numbers were right first before we got everything put together, and I'm kind of at that point. Any questions about that? That'll be the big thing. In a couple weeks, you'll see the budget, you'll see the fee schedule, you'll see the information regarding the pay plan, all those, certify the tax levy, all those things that we do in the last meeting of the year. That'll be kind of the big order of business for the next meeting. Any questions about that?
You're talking about December 12th.
Yeah.
And that's the same night we have the public hearing, truth and taxation
Yep.
hearing.
Oh, the truth and taxation hearing that night too. Yep. Yep. It's all part of the same thing. Yep. That'll be kind of the main thing that night. I'm trying not to schedule anything else during that particular meeting because there's a lot to discuss and digest. It's not substantially different than what we've talked about in the past, but I think it's important for everybody to kind of know what's there, and for the public to know what's in it as well, and what's going to be happening next year.
And you said you'd send that out to us ahead of time so we have a chance to review
Absolutely.
it. So the meeting will
Absolutely.
go along.
Yep. My intent is to have it to you Monday, a week from today, so you have a week to review it.
Perfect.
We have our homework.
Well, it's not that much different, honestly, than the preliminary one that I sent out earlier, but it'll just have more information and be a little more robust. So I would have liked to have had this version of you with the preliminary budget, but unfortunately, when we lost our finance director, that kind of put a monkey wrench into things a little bit in terms of my time. But we're just about there. I don't have anything else to add. Those are kind of the major things that are happening at the moment. Oh, I do want to say this. Jeff would have said it, but we did. The public should know that we officially closed on the sale of O'Brien Court a week ago, and we received funds for that. And so that is all wrapped up at this point. So it's been kind of a long time coming, and everybody is, Jeff's been working on this for like 4 years, and it's been a long time coming, and we're real happy about it. We have an action related to that a little bit later tonight too, but that was kind of an exciting thing to happen last week.
Agreed.
Yep. With that, I'd be happy to answer any other questions. Otherwise, we can move on to new business if you like.
Anybody have any questions for Eric?
So, related to that O'Brien Court and the future action, we're going to be using much of those proceeds for paying off the debt in 2 years, was it, in 2025?
That's correct. February 1st, 2025 is when it's first eligible. Yeah. We'll get to that in a second.
Yep.
Okay.
Go
Ready to go into new business?
Yes, please.
Can you hand these out to the council, Diane? This is just an updated resolution and council communication on the first item on new business. I wanted to have both of the union contracts, but I don't have the police one ready to go yet. But this is the Ask Me contract. We'll do the police one in a couple of weeks. And so the resolution is updated so that it's only the Ask Me union contract, and then we'll do another resolution on the police one later. There aren't a substantial amount of changes from the last union contract. This is a 3-year union contract and includes a market adjustment of 4% in 2023, 3.5% in 2024, and 3.5% in 2025. It includes an annual 2% step increase on your anniversary date. There aren't any changes to the health insurance. There aren't any changes to sick or vacation time. There's a few other minor changes like, some additional money for uniforms and some things like that. But it's substantially similar to the previous contract that was adopted in the fall of 2020 or 2019 for 2020 through 2022. This is essentially what you, as a council, had discussed and kind of previously said was okay. And so this was just a formal action to adopt it, and then authorizes the mayor and I to sign the agreement, and then whoever signs for the union will be on their side. And that's pretty much it.
Eric, in dollar terms, and what does this translate to, these increases, the impact on roughly?
What does 4% for the union employees only for 2023 mean? I don't have that number right in front of me. I'm sorry about that. I will tell you that in general, about $1.6 million that we have about $1.6 million in total wages and benefits. Smaller number. I apologize. I'm going to have to get back to you with that number. I don't have it right in front of me. I should have had that.
So then how does, I know that this is just for the union people, but how
Right.
does this, how is the rest of the people's?
So then there will be two other categories of people. You'll have the law enforcement union, which is going to cover our 2 police officers. That will be coming in a couple weeks. You have the salaried employees. One of the things what we have done in the past is tried to mirror as much as possible for the salaried employees, but what will happen is that you'll have an action next month that will adopt as part of the budget, that will adopt any pay adjustments for salaried employees as a separate group. And then the last one is really kind of part-time employees and seasonal folks. And so what have preliminarily got in the budget at this point is a 4% COLA for the salaried employees, which would mirror this, and no adjustments for the seasonal people and for the part-time people. I should say no adjustments. I should say adjustments. So that's part of the discussion we have to have. I mean, ultimately. So that's the way the budget is currently built.
So more or less, because as you can see, the big thing was the percentage increase.
Right.
And like Eric said, the employees or the union employees are getting the 4%, and he put in a 4% also for the salaried.
One of the things
Right.
that's correct. So everybody's going to get the same amount in terms of the COLA. I am going to be candid with you, though, is that we are reaching a point where historically, essentially what happened is that everybody got the same benefits as the union, but you're going to start to see some deviation between union benefits and salaries and benefits for other employees. And that's pretty standard in most communities around the country is that you have bargaining units, kind of bargain their own wages and benefits, and then you have kind of everybody else that's not covered in the union, and essentially the city council, in collaboration with the budget and the city administrator kind of, decides how to do the rest of it. And that's essentially the path that we're headed down for 2023, is things aren't going to be exactly the same for everybody.
Okay.
It's a little bit different model, but it's necessitated by fiscal constraint. We'll talk about more of that in a couple weeks when we review the budget. But for these union members, and I should say the union eligible positions, which are listed in the contract that was attached in your packet, this is what they would receive for the next 3 years.
Well, I will make a motion to accept or this union settlement, and just should be noted that this settlement was made after an extensive amount of negotiations. How many times, Jerry and Dave, how many negotiating sessions did you have?
3 plus emails and
I was just gonna say.
This is the
Two we
result
had
of
lasted
collaborative
quite a
bargaining.
while.
You can just do it.
I'll second the motion.
First and second, does anybody else have any questions about this? Roll call, please.
Cheeks,
aye.
Krugman,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Jones,
Aye.
Mayor Cohen.
The next item is a resolution restricting the funds from the sale of O'Brien Court. There should have been an email from Did we include the email from? Okay. The next item is an item, Resolution 2022-101, is restricting funds for the sale of O'Brien Court. Basically what it boils down to is that the charter has a provision in it. And it says that when you are selling a real property, you have to use those proceeds from the real property to pay off any debts associated with that property or a real property with similar purpose. Had a conversation with Matt Gross about this, and it's pretty clear that public housing, like Orchard Lane, is very much a similar purpose to public housing at O'Brien Court. Plus, it's probably a good thing to pay down debt anyway, given the fact of the circumstances that we're in. Paying down $1 million worth of debt is important. We owe now, roughly, $1.1 million on Orchard Lane currently. Because of the fact that we've refinanced it just a couple of years ago, we're not allowed to pay it off earlier than February 1st of 2025. Otherwise, we would just write them a check and be done with it. So I sent an email to David Drown and Associates, Shannon Sweeney, who's the person that put together the deal in the first place when we refinanced the bonds on O'Brien Court a few years ago, and said, okay. I said, well, how much money do we need, to reserve in order to ensure that when 2025 comes around, that we can pay it off? And that number is $1,031,400. $1,031,400. So what this action does is essentially restrict that money so that it can't be spent except to pay off that debt in 2 years. The remainder of the money that we received from that, $160-some thousand, is going to be programmed for capital improvements for 2023 per our discussion at our budget meeting the last time. And so ultimately that's what this action is. It ensures that this is going to be paid off in 2025, and then the rest of the money will be programmed for, capital improvements.
So for the next 2 years, that money, the city will invest it?
Yeah, and in fact, I'll tell you specifically, I had some conversation with Ehlers, who has our money invested right now. And we had a bond that actually just came due as well. And I plan on taking this money, that money, and some money that's excess cash in our checking account, and invest it. And they're recommending a schedule that includes some short or long-term, bonds. So we'll end up with about a $2 million schedule on those bonds. We'll get 3.5% roughly because of the way our interest rates are today. And so this money will collect interest over that time, and then that money will be then saved in that fund, and then we could use that. We could theoretically use that interest as well, over that period of time too. But yes, that's the intent, is to invest it. I will invest it. Is the short answer.
Well, it's just, investments they're starting to go back up, the percentages. So
That's why they're suggesting you invest some of it. You invest some of it in a short term, some of it in a longer terms. You want to lock in some rates, but then have some shorter ones. And so, we're gonna invest it based on the advice of our investment advisors at Ehlers, is what it amounts to. But it'll get a lot more than the 0.1% or whatever we get out of our checking account. That's for sure. So.
Somebody like to make that motion?
I'll make the motion to approve resolution 2022-101 to restrict the funds from the sale of O'Brien Court.
Second.
First and second, any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Koopman,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Teets,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Mayor Coleman.
Aye.
That's all we have tonight, Mayor. For the council meeting, we have the canvassing, the general election continued from the last, meeting. After we adjourn this one, and then we'll have to open the canvassing meeting after this.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the regular city council meeting.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I'd like to call to order the canvassing general election meeting.
You have to approve the agenda, Mayor.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as written.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now, would you like to continue?
Thank you. Appreciate that. So we held a recount for the council member for a year term on November, when did we do it? November 22nd. It was an interesting experience. Just to kind of give you a sense for, kind of how this went. Every ballot was counted by hand. We had 3 election judges there. Myself and the candidates and candidates representatives. Diane was there. I'd never supervised one of these things before, so it was really kind of interesting to watch. But essentially what we did is that we kind of piled ballots in piles of 25, and we counted them one at a time, literally by hand, a visual inspection, which is why these numbers are slightly different. It's because of the visual inspection. The candidate and the candidate representative had an opportunity to challenge a particular ruling by the election judges as to whether or not it was a vote for somebody or not. There were 3 challenges. Ultimately, the 3 challenges won't affect the election results, but we still need to review the challenges. So I have the actual physical ballots, the 3 of them, here with me. And you as the canvassing board basically have to rule on those ballots. But essentially what it boils down to is that we had some slight changes. In the recount, Jerry Shones went from 495 to 496.
Go, Jerry.
Got one more vote. Dave Teagues went from 464 to 468.
Oh, look at you.
Claiming.
Janet Ervisu went from 136 to 137. And Ruben Lee Sundheim went from 134 to 133. And Daniel Jensen went from 50 to 47. I'm pretty confident in these results. I mean, we were all watching the whole process, kind of sitting around the table. And the candidates were there along with their representatives, and so it was an interesting process. These are the results as they exist currently. What you have in your packet is you have kind of a tally sheet. You have the write-in tally that was signed by the judges. You have the individual tally sheets, kind of the groups of 25 that we went through. They're not all going to total up to 25 because it's not, in many cases, there were ballots that they didn't vote for anybody. And so that wouldn't count as a vote. And in some cases, they voted for 3 people. Sometimes they voted for 2. There was one where somebody voted for 4, and that's called an overvote, and that was completely tossed out. None of the votes were counted for any candidates in that particular case. Ultimately, we had 3 ballots, and I'm gonna open them now. I have not opened it. It's been sealed since the 22nd of November. We had 3 ballots that were contested. 2 of them by Ruben and 1 of them by Jan. Like I said, because there's 3 and there's a 4 vote difference, it won't make any difference. But we still need to review these ballots anyway. So they were sealed and signed, and I'm gonna pull them out, and we're gonna look at them one at a time. And you, as the canvassing board, need to rule on whether that's a vote that counts. And so these numbers, will slightly change ultimately, but like I said, it shouldn't affect the result.
Are we just looking at the write-in portion?
You are just looking at the council member 4-year term portion of it.
Gotcha.
The rest of it, they didn't review. You shouldn't review. And all of them are contested votes or challenged votes on the write-in portion of it. So they didn't challenge any of Dave Teague's or Jerry Shones' vote or Daniel Jensen's vote. So those are going to stay the same.
So there's not a conflict for us to look at it.
No, there's not a conflict for you to look at it at all. And so I'm going to go these kind of one by one. There's 3. Challenge ballot number 1. And I'm gonna send this around, and I'm just gonna explain what this is. This is a challenge. There was a vote that was challenged by Ruben, and there is a write-in vote for Ruben and in the mayor's office. And what Ruben is challenging is that is actually a vote for Ruben Sundheim. He just wrote it in the wrong place. So I'm going to pass the ballot along so that you can kind of review it and inspect it yourselves.
Do we have to seal those up again afterwards?
Yeah, we're going to have to.
Get the key to get out so I can go get another envelope to seal in.
Yep. Do it a little bit. So if you accept this challenge, that would add a vote for Ruben Sundheim.
I do not.
So you can discuss it. I asked Matt that question. Can you discuss it? Yes, you can. But ultimately, you got to vote whether to accept the challenge or not accept the challenge.
To me, it's in the mayor's block, and I just have to interpret it that it's a write-in vote for mayor. That's how I look at that ballot.
I agree.
I agree.
So that would be one where we would not accept the challenge, correct?
Yeah, so then you would, if what you would need is then, somebody needs to make a motion in a second.
I was
to
just
not-
making sure I had the right terminology.
Yep, to not accept the challenge, and that would mean that we would not add that vote to Ruben's tally.
So that's ballot one.
That's ballot one. We're gonna do these one at a time, there's
So
only
for
three.
ballot one, I would make the motion that the challenge not be accepted.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Do we do roll call on this?
Yes, let's do a roll call on this. Go ahead.
Okay, and the motion again is to
Not
deny that
accept.
challenge.
Okay, so the motion has been duly motioned and seconded to not accept challenge on ballot number one. Ron Koopman,
Yes.
Dave Teagues,
Aye.
Jerry Shones,
Aye.
Seth Schmidt, and Mayor Corman.
Aye.
Okay, motion. Motion passes unanimously to not accept that ballot as a challenge. Ballot number two is a challenge by Ruben. This is a challenge regarding the board. There's a vote in here for council member for Pam Arvisu. And the board counted that, wanted to count this as a vote for Jan Arvisu. Ruben said, no, that's not the same person, I challenge that. And so if you accept the challenge, if you accept the challenge, we wouldn't do anything. If you don't accept the challenge and say, no, that's a vote for Jan Arvisu, we would add a vote to Jan's vote. So I'm going to pass this around.
Thoughts on this one?
So that one was counted as it was counted as a vote.
They wanted to
for
count it. They wanted to count it as a vote for Jan Arvisu because it was challenged. It was not. So if you don't accept the challenge, we would add a vote to Jan's. Isn't that right? Yep. And then, but if you do accept the challenge, then we would not add a vote to Jan.
I think it goes back to the same one too. You got to be closer onto actually who was you're voting for.
I mean, there could be a Pam Arvisu. That's the one thing about write-ins, the challenge of it is people have to remember your name.
Yep.
And I don't think we can say
Right.
that is a vote for Jan.
I agree.
So would that be? What do you think, Mr. Koopman?
I would agree with that.
So that's one of those.
You would accept the
we
challenge.
would accept the challenge.
You would vote to accept the challenge.
So I'll make a motion to accept the challenge on ballot number 2.
Second.
First and second, any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Shones,
Aye.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Koopman,
Yes.
Teagues,
Aye.
Mayor Corman.
Aye.
Just to be clear, I actually misspoke on something. Because the canvassing board counted that as a vote, that was included in this total of 137. So because you accepted the challenge, it would be -1. So does that mean, so 137 -1. So the third one is a challenge by Jan that this was not a vote for Reuben because the name was not clear. And the name that's written under here looks like Jim Sundholm. So I'm gonna pass this around. Did the canvassing board count that? No, they did not. They did not count that as the canvassing board did not count that as a.
They didn't count any of them.
Yeah, they didn't.
They didn't count that towards Reuben, is that what you're saying?
So they didn't count any of them, you said? So then,
Ballot number 2 got counted.
I don't think so.
That's why the ballots were pulled out, so they were not in the final count. That was the 137 to 134. They did not include any of these.
That's right. So it's not -1.
Trying to think if I knew a Jim Sundholm.
I'm like, I don't know how that.
So another one, if we accept the challenge, it's not, would not be added in.
That's correct.
Just like the one we got done with.
Right.
I was just gonna say, it's the same thing.
Right.
Even if you give them the misspelling of the last name, a little forgiveness, a Jim is not a Reuben.
It'd be the same as what we did with Jan's.
Yeah, I agree, Ron.
So then it's a motion to accept the challenge for ballot number 3.
First and second, do we have any other discussion on that? Roll call, please.
Reuben.
Yes.
Jones.
Aye.
Teagues.
Aye.
Schmidt.
Yes.
Mayor Corman.
Aye.
So that means that you accepted that challenge, we didn't add it. The second one, I think ultimately what it means is that the vote count stays the same. That's what it amounts to. So that being said, your next action then would be to approve Resolution 2022-102, which is resolution certifying the recount votes held on November 22nd, 2022. Doesn't affect any of the other vote totals. You already canvassed those results. This is just the canvassing of the results for this office based on the recount. And so these will be the official vote totals then.
I would make a motion that we approve Resolution 2022-102, affirming the results that Jerry Jones, David Teagues, and Janet Arvizu are declared the winners for the council 4-year term position.
I'll second.
First and second, any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Teagues.
Aye.
Reuben.
Yes.
Schmidt.
Yes.
Jones.
Aye.
Mayor Corman.
Aye.
And that's all the business we have for the canvassing board, Mayor.
Can I get back?
Motion to adjourn.
There you go. We have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Any ballots are going back in here, do they have to sign over the top?
Yeah,